So hi, my name is Matt. I'm the tech director for Baja. Unfortunately, our coordinator was working today, so I had to fill in for her. So basically what Baja is we're like an off-roading vehicle. Right now it's two-wheel drive, but we're trying to work on four. Um, Built to be able to withstand a 4-hour endurance race through conditions that are more or less tailored to destroy your car. So first one we'll do is I'll walk you guys quickly through our design cycle, and then after that I'll give a bit more specifics about what competition is like and why we do the prep that we do for it. Um, so first off, we start with conception. So we look at the rules for the year or the next year. We see if there are any specific requirements. For example, next year we need a 4x4 car, which is why we're currently working on a design for 4x4. Once we have those in mind, we'll look at previous iterations of designs, what worked for us, what didn't work for us, the validation that we used, how we can use and carry that forward into the next year to our advantage. Then once we've done that, we can also look for outside sources. There are lots of great racing handbooks that we can use to get different ideas from, maybe look at different teams, how they've been designing their cars, if they've been performing better than us, and maybe try and steal something from them, and do quick hand calculations to sort of figure out like a general idea of what we want. Once we've done that, we start designing. So with that, we'll do CADs, we'll do CADs based off our brainstormed ideas. Whenever we design a car, we always design it from the wheels inwards. So we'll start at the wheels, we'll do our suspension points, then we'll build the frame, then the drivetrain, and everything else in the middle. So the designing part is usually pretty straightforward. We try and make everything as modular and as individual as possible. So that way, if something breaks, it's really easy to fix and repair, and it's really easy to have spares that are on hand. After we're done designing, we move on to the manufacturing. So manufacturing, typically we try and do as much as we can in-house with our own students. We do that with the EDML or with whichever lab is the most is the best for the required stuff. Usually it's the EDML. If we can't do it because, let's say, the welding is too complicated for our students, or we need a specific bend that we're not going to be able to do in-house, we usually try and find other companies outside that'll do it for us, and we try and limit that as much as we can, but sometimes we don't really have a choice, unfortunately. So after we manufacture it, we put the car together, and then the fun part starts, so we get to validate. So the validation is really just making sure that the calculations that we made while we were designing, while we were brainstorming, all the FEA, everything makes sense and is in line with what we predicted. So there are usually 3 different phases to how we validate. The first phase is we'll do something called a shakedown. And a shakedown is sort of not really a validation in and of itself. It's more making sure that our car can run properly. So what we do is we'll do a brake check, and we'll slam on the brakes really fast, and we'll make sure the engine is running properly and at the right RPMs and all that. And just to make sure that everything's okay, and that when we do run our car, it's not gonna like break down or anything like that, or put anyone in danger. After that, we start doing a bit of testing in the casino parking lot, the Casino Montreal's parking lot. They have a lot of just like middle of nowhere parking lots they don't use, so they'll rent it out to students to test their vehicles. We're lucky enough that they let us use it. Usually what we'll do there is we'll do acceleration runs to figure out the right settings on our CVT to see that. We'll do easy sort of twisting tracks to test our suspension, just easier stuff so our car can get acclimatized. Often we'll put GoPros on the car to sort of test that way the different variation in our heights there. And so we'll often get a lot of good data off of that. And then the third phase is we'll go to a motocross track in Saint-Julie, about half an hour, 45 minutes from Montreal. And we'll be able to run the car on a bit harder terrain. We'll be able to get maybe a bit more air to test our shocks with really if we've got the right suspension settings, how our car does on pavement, which is, sorry, not on pavement, on dirt, which is a bit looser, so it's harder to really calculate what's going on there. So basically those are the 3 phases. And we're able to, if we do it properly, we're able to basically prove or disprove everything we've calculated before. And the more we do that, the better the next iteration of the car will be. So that's always sort of the main focus of how we try and build our cars. So after you've built the car, after you've validated it, then you get to go to competition. So competition has three different parts. The first part is you have a design presentation and a sales presentation. So the sales presentation, the car is built to be mass produced. So you're sort of selling your idea, your product, to a group of judges who are telling you whether or not your business plan is okay. That's where sort of Baja has a good opportunity for JMSB students or whoever's interested in that sort of side of things. And then the design presentation, which is basically you go up to the judges and you say, this is our car, these are our different subsystems, and this is how it works. And they tear you apart based on how poor they think the design is or how good they think the design is. And typically that's where, if you have not done your validation properly, they will dock you innumerable marks. So the better you're able to complete that cycle, the more advantage you'll have going into competition. Then after that, you have what's called static events. So the static events are stuff like acceleration, sled pulls, hill climbs, maneuverability courses, stuff to test your suspension and traction, really just stuff to test your car in general. And it'll be usually timed laps or how far you can get up the hill, stuff like that. And that'll generally determine, it'll be like a decent amount of points, but the most points will be the endurance race. And the endurance race is a 4-hour race that usually is, you're happy if you can finish it, really, if your car's in one piece at the end. It's a bit chaotic. It's all over the place. The tracks are really built to push your car to the limit. And if you don't have a brake in your car during the race, it means either your driver has like achieved enlightenment or something went wrong with the racetrack. The point of it is to really push the engineering side and trying to see how well you designed it to be easily fixable. It's always like a lot of fun in the pits trying to figure out how you're going to fix like your suspension that's shattered into 3 pieces, and you're going to need to like bolt it together with a sheet of metal all of a sudden that you had no idea you had. It's definitely a lot dirtier and a lot more chaotic than let's say Formula, where it's sort of you go in, you do your time trial, and you get out. If something breaks, like too bad, you're done. So it's a lot more lenient in that way, but it's a lot more like brutal in the sense of if you're not prepared to get like a quick fix in, you're not going to be able to finish the race. But all around, it's a great team. I mean, I quite enjoy it. I think anyone who's sort of even passingly interested in it should come and give us a try and just come and speak to us. We're always super open. You know, we spend like a lot of time just working on the car because of how much punishment it goes through. So there's a lot of bonding that way, and we'll try and you know, we just have fun. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening to me. On to Formula.
Hello, can everyone see me? I guess I'm just gonna assume yes.
Yep.
Let me just share the thing. It's always such a pain. This.
Do you need me to share the screen?
Give me. I got it. Okay, everyone see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, last but not least, we are Formula. So actually this year we have 2 coordinators, myself and Leon. So I guess I'll let Leon introduce himself as well.
Yep. So I'm Leon. I'm the mechanical lead. We just recently merged the teams, so I was part of the combustion team previously.
Yeah, so yeah, now we've merged. I mean, we can get right into that right away. So yeah, we used to be 2 teams historically. Now we're 1, but we have 2 projects going. So we have obviously the combustion car, which has been around for a while. So that project has, you know, gone to a lot of competitions, done a lot of things. So they're pretty late stage in the development. Their main focus is refining the platform, so collecting lots of data from testing, adding, refining certain parts now that they know like where their failure points are, like what's slowing them down. And then we have the newer project, the all-electric one. So like I think it was Sev mentioned, like we've been developing this for a little bit, like a couple of years now. We've had not very many resources though, and there's been pretty poor turnover because, like it was started by a fourth-year student, and he left the next year, and then kind of the same cycle kept going on and on. Now, however, we've merged. We have a lot more resources and a lot more carryover. So this year, well, it was supposed to be last year, but the whole shebang happened. But this year, we will be kind of finally making and testing our first iteration of the car, which is great. The main part, obviously, that we're developing is the drivetrain and the battery pack, because that's the heart of the car. It's where I don't want to downplay other subsystems, but when you're designing an electric car, that's the biggest hurdle, really, designing the battery pack so that it doesn't explode. And yeah, both of the cars go through kind of the same design cycle, but now since we have two, they're going to be going through it at different times. Our first year, both of us go through a 2-year cycle. Our first year is design, our second year is building and testing. Yeah, so essentially now that we have two projects, we'll be constantly doing both, which is neat. So the design year is kind of like Baja's more than any other team. You do brainstorming, you do your initial roadmap, you do all your quick calcs. A lot of it at the beginning of the year is just figuring out if it's even possible to do a certain project within a year or two, or whether this is just like a research project that's going to get done in like a couple of years. Once you've kind of figured out feasibility, you build yourself a timeline. Usually the leads will do that, so the majority of the members don't really need to worry about the timeline, just doing the task. But yeah, then you start the fun part, which is designing it. So I think a couple of people have mentioned you do this kind of in a couple cycles. So you do your preliminary design, which is all your quick calcs. You take your first shot at it. You have a pretty good idea that like what you're doing is right, but you haven't put that much like work into specific areas because you don't know if this is gonna be validated. So you kind of want to broadly cover everything and take your best shot. So once that's done, you have your first review, and this is one of the most, if not the most important part of engineering, is review, because this is when other people look at your project, whether it's the EIR, whether it's more senior members, whether it's people on council, whoever really has the expertise to like critique you on your design will look over this, and they'll catch all the flaws, or as many as they can catch. So, and then once they've done that, then you go to the second step of design. You kind of redesign, but you continue forward. And this second time that you're doing it, you're doing the more intense validation, the simulations, the FEA, the everything, to the point, well, as far as you can. You're trying to just completely exhaust an idea to the point where you can't think of any other analysis to do on it. Then when you're done that, you have another review. So you put together everything you've done on this project, and then you present it again. And then these same people or different people will look at it again, see, okay, like there was a problem here, how did you fix that? And then you get to see the whole process of how you came to this final design and why. And yeah, then once everyone's kind of satisfied, or as satisfied as they can be with where you're at, then you freeze it. Then that's what you're going to be building. So